A dream begins to fracture. In the city of shimmering dreams and endless ambitions, John Calloway stood as an untouchable force. With an empire built from grit and sheer will, his name was synonymous with power and success. At just 38 years old, John had become a self-made millionaire, a titan in the world of real estate and venture capitalism. His name was etched into the skyline of New York City with every towering building he owned. But behind his tailored suits, ironclad deals, and captivating smile lay a man increasingly consumed by his own ambitions. John's life revolved around deals and profits, leaving little room for anything or anyone else. He lived in a penthouse that kissed the clouds and drove cars that roared louder than thunder. And yet, for all the grandeur around him, John barely noticed when love began slipping through his fingers. Anna Calloway, his wife of 6 years, was his complete opposite. A quiet woman with a passion for teaching, she had always seen the world not in terms of profit, but in terms of people. Her dream had never been about wealth or fame. It was to build a life filled with meaning, rooted in compassion. In their earlier years, Anna had been the grounding force in John's life. Her belief in him was unwavering, even when he doubted himself. She had stood by his side through sleepless nights and countless setbacks. But as John climbed higher and higher, the very qualities that once drew him to Anna became insignificant. Her warmth, patience, and grounded values seemed to pale in comparison to the dazzling world of high society he now inhabited. Anna, however, had a secret that gave her hope even as cracks began forming in their marriage. She was pregnant. It wasn't planned, but to Anna, the baby growing inside her was a miracle. She believed this new life could heal their growing distance, could bring them back together. Her optimism carried her through the lonely nights and the growing coldness of their home. John, increasingly preoccupied with expanding his empire, barely noticed the glow on her face or the subtle changes in her demeanor. She told herself it was just the stress of his work and that things would get better when she told him the news. It was on a crisp autumn day that Anna decided to reveal her pregnancy. She had arranged a lunch at an upscale restaurant, one they had visited during their honeymoon. She wanted the moment to be perfect, a memory they could cherish. Dressed in a flowing emerald green dress that complemented her auburn hair, Anna arrived early and sat at a corner table with a view of Central Park. As she waited, her hands rested instinctively on her still flat stomach. She practiced her words in her head. "John, we're having a baby. You're going to be a father." A nervous excitement bubbled within her. Surely this news would spark the old John back to life, the John who once held her close and whispered promises of forever. But John was late. He always was. 30 minutes passed, then 45. Anna tried to shake off her disappointment, focusing instead on the joy she hoped to see in his eyes when he finally arrived. And then she saw him. John walked into the restaurant, his presence commanding as always. But he wasn't alone. On his arm was a tall, striking woman with dark hair and a laugh that seemed to draw out every eye in the room. Anna froze, her heart sinking into the pit of her stomach. It was Claire Donovan, one of John's executives, a woman known for her ambition and charm. The pair walked toward Anna's table, John's eyes widening slightly as he spotted her. For a moment, a flicker of something, guilt, perhaps, crossed his face. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a mask of cool indifference. "Anna," he said, his tone brisk, as though he had just run into an old acquaintance. "I didn't realize you'd be here." Anna stood, her knees trembling. I thought we had lunch plans. Don't you remember?" Claire raised an eyebrow, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Oh, John," she teased, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You didn't tell me you were meeting your wife." Anna's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She looked at John, silently pleading for an explanation. But instead of showing remorse, he shrugged. "It must have slipped my mind," he said dismissively. "I've been busy." "Busy?" Anna repeated, her voice trembling. "Too busy to remember plans with your wife." John's expression hardened. "Don't make a scene, Anna." The words hit her like a slap. Anna's vision blurred as tears threatened to spill. She glanced at Claire, who was now openly smirking, and then back at John, searching his face for even a hint of the man she had married. "John," Anna whispered, her voice breaking. "I need to talk to you. It's important." "Not now," he snapped, his tone ice-cold. "Can't you see I'm in the middle of something?" "Please," Anna begged, her hand moving instinctively to her stomach. "It's about—" "Enough, Anna," John interrupted sharply. "You're embarrassing yourself. Just go home." The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Anna felt every eye in the restaurant on her, their gazes a mix of pity and curiosity. Her world seemed to tilt, her heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. With one last desperate look at John, Anna turned and fled the restaurant, tears streaming down her face. She ran until her legs gave out, collapsing onto a bench in the park. Her hands cradled her stomach as sobs racked her body. The joy and hope she had carried just hours earlier now felt like cruel illusions. How had it come to this? How had the man who once knelt before her with a ring and a promise of forever become so heartless? As the wind rustled the autumn leaves around her, Anna made a decision. She couldn't stay. Not for John. Not for the life they had built. She had to think about her child now. A child who deserved better than to grow up in the shadow of a loveless marriage. Wiping her tears, Anna stood. For the first time in years, she felt the stirrings of strength within her. It was time to take her life back, to carve out a new path for herself and her unborn child. Back in the restaurant, John continued his lunch with Claire, unaware of the profound moment he had just caused. He had dismissed Anna's pain, brushing it off as yet another minor inconvenience. But the cracks in his carefully constructed empire had begun to spread, and it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. The rise from the ashes. The days following the humiliating scene at the restaurant passed in a haze for Anna. She locked herself in their sprawling penthouse, the walls of what had once been their sanctuary now feeling like a prison. Her only solace was the fluttering movements within her belly, a gentle reminder of the life she now needed to protect. Late one night, Anna sat at the edge of their king-sized bed, staring at the glossy wedding photo on her nightstand. In it, John smiled at her with warmth and pride, his arms wrapped protectively around her. She traced the outline of his face with trembling fingers before reaching for the frame and placing it face down. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered to herself. She spent the following morning packing. Every garment she folded into her suitcase felt like a fragment of her life crumbling away. The memories of laughter, love, and hope became ghosts haunting her every move. But Anna knew she had to leave, not just for herself, but for her baby. She had no idea where she would go or how she would start over, but staying with John was no longer an option. By mid-afternoon, the penthouse was eerily quiet, save for the sound of Anna scribbling a note on a piece of stationery. Her hand shook as she wrote, but she forced herself to finish. "John, when we exchanged vows, I believed in forever. I believed in us. But the man I married, the man I loved, is gone. I've tried to hold on, to hope, but I can't anymore. I'm leaving, not because I want to, but because I have to. I'm carrying our child. A child you didn't even give me the chance to tell you about. I'll do whatever it takes to give our baby a life filled with love and security, even if that means doing it alone. Someday, I hope you realize what you've lost. Until then, goodbye. Anna." She placed the note on the nightstand and cast one last glance around the apartment. Her eyes lingered on the window overlooking the city, a view she had once found breathtaking, but now seemed suffocating. Clutching her suitcase, Anna left the penthouse, closing the door softly behind her. For the first time in years, she felt free, though the weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on her shoulders. Anna didn't have much money. Most of their wealth was tied up in John's accounts, But she had enough savings to secure a small apartment in a modest Boston neighborhood. The building was old, the paint peeling in places, but it was quiet and felt like a fresh start. Over the next few weeks, Anna began to rebuild her life piece by piece. She took up tutoring to make ends meet, using her teaching background to help struggling students in the area. Her days were long and exhausting, but the growing life within her gave her strength. Her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, an elderly widow with a kind heart, became a source of support. One evening, Anna confided in her about her pregnancy and the circumstances that led her to Boston. Mrs. Henderson listened without judgment, her gnarled hands clasping Anna's tightly. "You're stronger than you think, dear," Mrs. Henderson said, her voice soft but firm. "This baby is your chance to start over. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're not enough." Encouraged by her neighbor's words, Anna began to dream again, not for herself, but for her child. She envisioned a future where her baby could grow up surrounded by love and stability, free from the shadows of a broken marriage. One rainy afternoon, Anna sat at her kitchen table, balancing her checkbook. The numbers were tight, and the stress of stretching every dollar weighed heavily on her. But then she felt a sharp kick, a strong, determined movement from her baby. She smiled, placing a hand on her belly. "You're a fighter, aren't you?" she murmured, "just like your mama." The thought sparked something within her, a determination to build a better future, no matter how daunting it seemed. Anna decided she wouldn't just survive, she would thrive. For herself and for her child. Anna's focus shifted toward a project that had been a long-standing dream, creating a community school for underprivileged children. In her years as a teacher, she had seen the transformative power of education, and she wanted to give that gift to others. With a fire she hadn't felt in years, Anna began drafting a proposal for her school. She researched grants, contacted local organizations, and reached out to potential donors. It wasn't easy. Most days, she faced rejection or indifference. But every time she felt like giving up, she thought of her baby and the life she wanted to create. Months passed, and Anna's belly grew. She moved through the world with a quiet confidence, her steps steadier than before. Though she was still haunted by memories of John, she no longer allowed them to define her. Instead, she channeled her pain into purpose. One evening, as she reviewed her school plans, she felt a sudden, sharp pain. Her breath hitched, and she clutched her stomach. The pain came again, stronger this time. Panic rose within her, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Mrs. Henderson," she called, her voice trembling. Within minutes, her neighbor was by her side, helping her into a cab bound for the hospital. The journey felt endless, every bump in the road amplifying Anna's fear. At the hospital, a team of doctors and nurses whisked her into a room. The next few hours were a blur of pain, fear, and determination. Anna gripped the nurse's hand tightly as she pushed, her mind focused solely on bringing her baby into the world. And then, at 3:47 a.m., the room was filled with the sharp cry of a newborn. "It's a boy," the doctor announced, lifting the baby so Anna could see him. Tears streamed down Anna's face as she reached for her son. He was tiny and perfect, with a tuft of dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of the world. "Hello, my love," Anna whispered, cradling him against her chest. "You're my miracle." She named him Noah, a name that symbolized new beginnings. In the weeks that followed, Anna's life became a whirlwind of late-night feedings, endless diaper changes, and the quiet joy of watching her son grow. Noah became her anchor, his tiny presence filling the void John had left behind. Her school plans took a backseat as she adjusted to motherhood, but Anna refused to let go of her dream. With Noah by her side, she attended meetings, drafted proposals, and even began teaching a small group of children in her apartment. One afternoon, as Noah napped in his crib, Anna stared at the blueprint for her school. Her heart swelled with pride and determination. She was building something extraordinary, not just for her son, but for countless children who deserved a chance to succeed. She no longer thought of herself as the woman John had left behind. She was Anna Calloway, a mother, a dreamer, and a fighter. Her journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, Anna felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. An unbreakable resolve. Anna's world was a delicate balance of hope, determination, and exhaustion. Noah was growing quickly, his dark curls bouncing as he started to toddle around the small apartment, his infectious laughter filling every corner of their humble home. His presence was a constant reminder of the strength Anna had found within herself, even as the challenges she faced threatened to overwhelm her. Despite her limited resources, Anna's vision for the school had begun to take form. What started as a simple idea sketched on a notebook now involved concrete plans, community support, and even a name: the Lighthouse Learning Center. To Anna, the name represented everything she wanted her school to be: a beacon of hope and opportunity for children who felt lost in the shadows of poverty and neglect. The spark of progress. One brisk morning, Anna attended a city council meeting to present her proposal. Clutching a worn briefcase filled with research, plans, and testimonials from parents, she waited nervously for her turn to speak. Noah, bundled in a knit sweater and perched on Mrs. Henderson's lap in the audience, waved at her with a toothy grin. When her name was called, Anna stood, smoothing her skirt and stepping forward. The council chamber was filled with people, some indifferent, others openly skeptical. But Anna's voice was steady as she introduced herself and laid out her vision. "Good morning. My name is Anna Calloway," she began, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the podium. "I am a mother, an educator, and someone who believes deeply in the power of education to transform lives." She spoke about her experiences as a teacher, about the children she had met who struggled to learn because they lacked basic resources. She described her dream of creating a safe, nurturing environment where every child, regardless of their circumstances, could thrive. For too many children in our community, education feels like an unattainable luxury, Anna continued, her voice gaining strength. "But I believe we can change that. I believe we can give these children the tools they need to succeed, not just in school, but in life." By the time she finished, the room was silent. For a moment, Anna feared she had failed to reach them. But then, one of the council members, a woman with graying hair and a warm smile, began to clap. Others soon joined, and the room filled with applause. Though the council couldn't provide immediate funding, they encouraged Anna to continue her efforts and offered her the opportunity to present at an upcoming community fundraiser. It was a small victory, but to Anna, it felt monumental. A setback and a silver lining. The weeks that followed were a blur of preparation. Anna worked tirelessly, often staying up late into the night after Noah had fallen asleep. She designed brochures, wrote grant proposals, and practiced her speech for the fundraiser. But just as things seemed to be falling into place, disaster struck. The landlord of her building informed her that her rent would be increasing by nearly 20%, an amount Anna simply couldn't afford. "I'm sorry, Miss Calloway," the landlord said, not unkindly, "but the market's changing, and I have to adjust." Anna returned to her apartment, her heart heavy with worry. How could she provide for Noah and keep working toward her dream if she couldn't even afford a place to live? As she sat at the kitchen table, her head in her hands, a knock at the door startled her. It was Mrs. Henderson, holding a plate of cookies and wearing a determined expression. "I heard about the rent increase," the elderly woman said, setting the cookies down on the table. "You can't stay here, dear. It's too much. But there's a building on the other side of town, a little rundown, but the owner is looking to sell. It could be perfect for your school." Anna blinked, the suggestion catching her off guard. "Mrs. Henderson, I can't even afford the rent here. How could I possibly buy a building?" The older woman smiled knowingly. "You'd be surprised what a little faith and a lot of determination can accomplish. Let's go take a look tomorrow. You have nothing to lose." The next day, Anna and Mrs. Henderson visited the building. It was a small two-story structure with peeling paint and cracked windows, but Anna could see its potential. She envisioned classrooms filled with eager children, a library stacked with books, and a playground in the empty lot behind the building. Her heart swelled with possibility, but reality quickly set in. Even at its low asking price, the building was far beyond her financial reach. Still, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that this was the place where her dream could truly come to life. That night, as she rocked Noah to sleep, she whispered, "We'll find a way, my love. I promise." The turning point. Anna threw herself into fundraising with renewed vigor. She attended every community meeting, hosted bake sales, and even started a crowdfunding campaign online. Slowly, word of her efforts began to spread. One day, while tutoring a student, Anna received an unexpected visitor. A well-dressed man in his 50s introduced himself as Richard Clark, a philanthropist who had heard about her campaign through the local news. "I'm impressed by your dedication, Miss Calloway," Richard said, handing her his business card. "I'd like to learn more about your project. Perhaps I can help." Anna was cautious but hopeful. Over the next few weeks, she met with Richard several times, sharing her vision and progress. To her astonishment, he agreed to provide a substantial donation to help purchase the building on one condition. "I'm not just giving you money," Richard said. "I'm investing in your dream. I want to see this school succeed, and I want to be part of that journey." Anna agreed, her gratitude overwhelming. With Richard's support, she was able to secure the building and begin renovations. Volunteers from the community pitched in, painting walls, repairing floors, and assembling donated furniture. Even Mrs. Henderson rolled up her sleeves, determined to see Anna's dream become a reality. The grand opening. After months of relentless effort, the day finally arrived. The Lighthouse Learning Center was ready to open its doors. The once dilapidated building now stood as a symbol of hope, its fresh coat of paint gleaming in the sunlight. On the morning of the grand opening, Anna stood outside the school with Noah in her arms. A crowd of parents, children, and community members gathered, their faces alight with anticipation. Richard Clark stood beside her, his expression one of quiet pride. Anna took a deep breath and stepped forward to address the crowd. "This school is more than just a building," she began, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "It's a testament to what we can achieve when we come together as a community. It's a place where every child will be valued, supported, and given the tools to succeed." The applause was deafening, and as Anna cut the ribbon, she felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. She had done it, not alone, but with the help of people who believed in her vision. Inside, children ran excitedly through the halls, their laughter echoing off the freshly painted walls. Noah toddled after them, his small face beaming with joy. Anna watched him, her heart full. For the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. The path ahead would still be challenging, but she knew she was no longer walking it alone. Her resolve was unbreakable, and her dream was now a reality. The Lighthouse Learning Center stood as a beacon of hope, not just for the children it served, but for Anna herself. When the past comes knocking, life at the Lighthouse Learning Center quickly found its rhythm. The once silent halls were alive with the sounds of children laughing, learning, and dreaming. Each morning, Anna would greet the students as they entered, her son Noah toddling by her side. The school had become a second home, not just for the children, but also for Anna, who poured her heart into making it a success. Despite the daily challenges, tight budgets, occasional staff shortages, and long hours, Anna felt fulfilled. She had carved out a life of meaning, one where her passion and purpose were finally aligned. For Noah, the school became a magical place where he could explore, grow, and be surrounded by love. Yet, as Anna settled into her new life, she couldn't shake the occasional shadow of her past. There were moments, late at night, after Noah had fallen asleep, when she would find herself thinking about John, the man who had once been her partner in everything, who had stood at her side as they vowed to share their lives, and who had ultimately shattered those promises. She wondered if he ever thought of her, or of the child he never knew. But she quickly pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the present and the future she was building for Noah. The unwelcome encounter. It had been 2 years since Anna had left New York, when John Calloway's name re-entered her life in the most unexpected way. It was a rainy Friday afternoon, and Anna was in her office at the school, going over lesson plans. Noah was in the next room, playing with blocks under the watchful eye of Mrs. Henderson. A knock at the office door startled Anna from her work. She called for the visitor to enter, expecting it to be one of the teachers or a parent. Instead, she was met with a sight that made her heart stop. Standing in the doorway, rain dripping from his trench coat, was John. Anna froze, her pen falling from her hand. For a moment, the room seemed to spin. John looked almost the same as she remembered. Sharp suit, chiseled features, but there was something different about him. His face seemed wearier, his once proud demeanor subdued. "Anna," he said, his voice soft but filled with emotion. She stood slowly, her hands instinctively clutching the edge of her desk. "What are you doing here, John?" His gaze dropped to the floor for a moment before meeting hers again. "I know I'm the last person you want to see, but I need to talk to you. Please." Anna's chest tightened, her emotions a whirlwind of anger, confusion, and a flicker of something she couldn't name. "You need to talk. After 2 years of silence. After what you did. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," John said, stepping further into the room, his voice raw. "But I had no idea. About Noah, about any of it. I had to see you." At the mention of Noah, Anna's protective instincts flared. "You don't get to walk in here and disrupt my life, John. You gave up that right when you chose to humiliate me, to abandon me." "I didn't abandon you," John said, his tone tinged with regret. "I was a fool, Anna. Blinded by ambition, by my own arrogance. I didn't realize what I was losing until it was too late." Anna crossed her arms, her jaw tightening. "Why now, John? Why come here after all this time?" He hesitated, running a hand through his damp hair. "I found out about Noah. Someone mentioned your school, and I realized I had to see you both, to try and make things right." Anna felt her knees weaken, her emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "You don't get to make things right, John. You don't get to show up and fix everything with an apology. Noah doesn't even know you exist." John flinched as though she had slapped him. "I know, and I don't expect forgiveness or even a place in your life. I needed to try." An uneasy truce. The tension in the room was palpable, the silence heavy with unspoken words. Anna's mind raced, torn between protecting the life she had built and confronting the unresolved emotions John's presence stirred within her. Finally, she spoke. "I don't know if I can trust you, John. Not with Noah. Not with anything." "I understand," John said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I'll do whatever it takes to prove myself. Just let me see him. Once." Anna's instinct was to refuse, but a part of her, a small, reluctant part, recognized that Noah had a right to know his father, flawed as he was. She sighed, her shoulders sagging under the weight of the decision. "Fine," she said, her tone firm. "You can meet him, but only under my terms, and if I feel for 1 second that you're a threat to his happiness, you're gone." John nodded, relief washing over his face. "Thank you, Anna. I won't let you down." The first meeting. Later that afternoon, Anna watched from a distance as John sat on the floor of the school's playroom, facing Noah. The little boy eyed him curiously, clutching a stuffed elephant. "Hi, Noah," John said, his voice gentle. I'm a friend of your mom's." Noah tilted his head, studying John for a moment before holding out the elephant. "This is Ellie." John smiled, his eyes misting as he took the toy. "Ellie's a nice name. Did you pick it?" Noah nodded solemnly. "She's my best friend." Anna's chest tightened as she watched the interaction. Noah was too young to understand who John really was, but there was an undeniable connection between them, a bond that even time and distance couldn't erase. A struggle for redemption. Over the next few weeks, John began to make himself a quiet presence in their lives. He showed up at the school, volunteering to help with maintenance and fundraising. He never pushed Anna or Noah, instead allowing them to set the pace. For Anna, it was a confusing time. She couldn't deny that John was making an effort, but years of pain and betrayal couldn't be erased so easily. She often found herself watching him, searching for signs of the man she had fallen in love with, the man she had once believed in. One evening, as they cleaned up after a school event, Anna finally broke the silence between them. "Why are you really here, John?" she asked, her voice weary. "What do you want from us?" John set down the stack of chairs he was carrying, his expression serious. "I don't want anything, Anna. I just want to be here. For you. For Noah. I know I can't undo the past, but I want to be part of the future, if you'll let me." Anna's heart ached at his words, but she wasn't ready to let her guard down. "You have a lot to prove, John. To me and to Noah." "I know," he said, "and I'm not going anywhere." Steps toward healing. As the weeks turned into months, John's actions began to speak louder than his words. He became an integral part of the school's community, earning the respect of the staff and parents. He spent hours with Noah, building Lego towers, reading bedtime stories, and learning the small nuances of fatherhood. Anna watched from the sidelines, her heart a battlefield of conflicting emotions. Slowly, she began to see glimpses of the man she had once loved, a man humbled by his mistakes and determined to rebuild what he had lost. One evening, as they walked home from the school together, Noah holding both their hands, Anna felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, the wounds of the past could heal. But as they reached their apartment, Anna couldn't shake the lingering doubt. Could she truly trust John again? Or was this newfound harmony just another illusion waiting to shatter? Cracks in the foundation. The tentative peace Anna had allowed John to build within her world was fragile. Though Noah's joy in his father's presence was undeniable, Anna often found herself grappling with conflicting emotions. She couldn't ignore the effort John was putting in, his dedication to Noah, his work at the school, and his apparent humility. But the scars he had left on her heart were still raw. Trust was a towering wall, and though John tried to scale it, every step forward reminded Anna of how high it truly was. A glimpse of change. It was a bright spring morning when Anna found herself watching John interact with Noah in the school's garden. John had volunteered to help build a small vegetable patch for the children, and Noah, with his tiny hands buried in the soil, was eagerly helping. Anna stood at a distance, her arms crossed as she watched father and son. Noah giggled as John handed him a small watering can. "Daddy, this one is thirsty," he exclaimed, pointing to a wilted tomato plant. John chuckled, his voice warm. "Then we'd better give it a drink, huh? But not too much, or it'll drown." Anna felt her heart clench at the word daddy. Noah had started using it naturally, as though he had always known John. She couldn't deny the pang of guilt that came with knowing she had kept them apart, but she quickly reminded herself of the reasons why. John hadn't been the man Noah needed, until now. As the pair continued their work, Anna's thoughts were interrupted by Mrs. Henderson's voice. "They look like they've been doing this forever," the older woman said, stepping beside Anna. "They do," Anna admitted, her voice laced with hesitation. "But it's complicated." Mrs. Henderson gave her a knowing look. "You've been burned, my dear, and I can't blame you for being cautious, but don't let the fear of the past blind you to what's right in front of you." Anna said nothing, but the words stayed with her long after Mrs. Henderson had walked away. An unexpected visit. Just as Anna began to let herself believe that John might truly be changing, an unwelcome reminder of the past arrived. One afternoon, as Anna worked in her office, a sharp knock echoed through the room. She called for the visitor to enter, expecting a parent or one of the teachers. Instead, it was a woman she had hoped never to see again, Claire Donovan. Claire's presence was as commanding as Anna remembered, her designer suit tailored to perfection, her red lipstick vibrant and unapologetic. She stepped into the office with the confidence of someone who knew they belonged, though Anna felt her stomach churn at the sight of her. "Anna," Claire said, her voice cool and clipped. "It's been a long time." Anna stood, her spine straightening. "Claire, what are you doing here?" Claire's smile was sharp. "I could ask you the same thing." Imagine my surprise when I found out John had been spending his time here. With you. And a child. Anna's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. "If you have something to say, say it. I don't have time for games." Claire arched an eyebrow. "Still as fiery as ever, I see. Fine. I'll get to the point. John and I have a history, a deep one. And I don't believe he's truly committed to whatever this is." She gestured vaguely around the office. "I thought you should know." Anna's hands curled into fists at her sides. "And what exactly are you trying to accomplish by telling me this? John and I aren't the same people we were when you last saw us." "Perhaps not," Claire said, her voice softening but still laced with condescension. "But men like John don't change, Anna. They pretend to, until they get bored. I've seen it before, and I'd hate for you to get hurt again." Anna felt the sting of Claire's words, but she refused to show it. "I appreciate your concern, but John's choices are no longer your business. If you'll excuse me, I have work to do." Claire hesitated, as if she wanted to say more, but finally nodded and left the office. The tension she left behind lingered, settling over Anna like a storm cloud. The weight of doubt. That evening, Anna confronted John. They were in her small apartment, Noah already tucked into bed. John had been helping with the dishes when Anna dropped the question like a stone into the still waters of their uneasy peace. "Why is Claire here?" John froze, the dish in his hand slipping slightly. "Claire, what do you mean?" "She came to see me today," Anna said, her arms crossed. "She implied you're still involved." John's face darkened, a mixture of frustration and guilt flashing across his features. "Anna, I haven't spoken to Claire in over a year. Whatever she said, it's not true." "Then why would she come here?" Anna pressed, her voice trembling. "Why would she make the effort if there wasn't something she believed?" John set the dish down and turned to face her fully. "Because Claire thrives on manipulation. She doesn't want me, Anna. She wants control. I cut ties with her for a reason." Anna searched his face, looking for any sign of deception. "You hurt me once, John. More than once. I can't afford to go through that again. Not for me. And not for Noah." "I know," John said, his voice heavy with regret. "And I don't expect you to trust me overnight. But I swear to you, Anna, I'm not that man anymore." Anna wanted to believe him, but Claire's words echoed in her mind. Men like John don't change. Could she take that risk? The breaking point. For the next few weeks, Anna wrestled with her doubts. John continued to prove himself, showing up for Noah, supporting the school, and staying patient with Anna's guardedness. But the shadow of Claire's visit loomed large, feeding Anna's fears. One afternoon, as Anna walked into the school's main office, she overheard John on a phone call. His voice was low, but the tension in his tone was unmistakable. "No, Claire, I've made myself clear," he said. "This conversation is over." Anna felt her stomach drop. She stepped into the room, and John turned, his expression shifting from frustration to guilt. "Anna," he began, but she held up a hand. "You're still talking to her?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It's not what you think," John said quickly. "She's been trying to stir up trouble, but I'm not engaging with her." Anna's anger boiled over. "You should have told me, John. After everything, you should have been honest." "I didn't want to worry you," he said, stepping closer. "Anna, please, I'm trying to protect what we're building here." Anna shook her head, tears threatening to spill. "I can't do this, John. I can't keep wondering if I'm going to get hurt again." John's face fell, and for the first time, he looked truly defeated. "I love you, Anna," he said quietly. "And I love Noah. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you." Anna didn't respond. She turned and walked out of the office, her heart heavy with the weight of her uncertainty. A flicker of light. That night, as she sat by Noah's bed, watching him sleep, Anna felt a wave of despair. She wanted to believe in John, in the possibility of a future together. But the fear of repeating the past was too strong. Then she looked at Noah, his small hand clutching the stuffed elephant he loved so dearly. His peaceful expression reminded her of the strength she had found when she left John years ago, the strength to build a life for her son. She realized that while the future was uncertain, she couldn't make decisions out of fear. Whether or not John was sincere, Anna knew she needed to face her doubts head-on. For Noah, for herself. The next morning, she resolved to confront her fears. And John, once and for all. A future forged in trust. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains of Anna's modest apartment, casting warm streaks across the walls. As she prepared Noah's breakfast, her mind churned with thoughts of what she had resolved to do. Today was the day she would confront everything, her fears, her doubts, and her fragile hope that John might truly be the man he was trying to become. John arrived at the school early, as he often did, carrying a bag of freshly baked muffins for the staff. His face lit up when he saw Anna walking toward him in the hallway, but his smile faltered when he noticed the tension in her expression. "Can we talk?" Anna asked, her voice steady but serious. John nodded, his brows furrowing. "Of course. Let's step into my office." Laying it bare. Once inside, Anna closed the door behind her and faced him, her arms crossed defensively. She took a deep breath, summoning the courage she needed. "John," she began, "I need you to understand how difficult this has been for me. Letting you back into Noah's life, into my life, wasn't easy. And every time I start to believe you've changed, something like Claire's visit makes me question everything." John listened intently, his expression pained but composed. "I know, Anna, and I take full responsibility for the pain I caused you. I've made mistakes, terrible ones, but I swear to you, I'm not the same person I was." "I want to believe that," Anna admitted, her voice softening. "But believing means risking everything. It means opening myself up to being hurt again. And I don't know if I'm ready for that." John stepped closer, his blue eyes searching hers. "Anna, I'll spend the rest of my life proving myself to you if that's what it takes. But you need to know something. I love you. I never stopped loving you, even when I was too blind to see how much I was losing." Anna's chest tightened at his words, her emotions swirling like a storm. She wanted to believe him, to trust the sincerity in his voice, but her doubts still clung to her like shadows. "Then show me, John," she said finally. "Show me that you mean it." Facing the past. Over the following weeks, John began to address the ghosts of his past. He reached out to Claire, not to rekindle anything, but to firmly sever any remaining ties. In a meeting that Anna attended as a silent observer, John made it clear that he was committed to his family and their future. "Claire," he said, his voice steady, "there's nothing between us, and there never will be. My focus is on Anna and Noah now. I'm asking you to respect that." Claire's face remained impassive, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of regret. "If that's what you want, John," she said coolly, "I'll respect your decision." When the meeting ended, Anna felt a small weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time, she saw John actively choosing their family over his past, and it gave her a sliver of hope, a moment of crisis. But life, as always, had its way of testing resolve. A few weeks later, Noah fell seriously ill. What started as a simple fever escalated into a frightening ordeal. Anna rushed him to the hospital, her heart pounding as doctors worked to stabilize him. John arrived moments later, his face pale and stricken. He immediately took Anna's hand, his grip firm and comforting. "What happened?" he asked, his voice trembling. "They think it's an infection," Anna said, her voice breaking. "They're running tests now." John didn't hesitate. He stayed by Noah's side through every test and treatment, holding his son's hand and whispering words of comfort. When Noah woke briefly, he reached for John, his small voice murmuring, "Daddy." Hearing Noah call for his father brought tears to Anna's eyes. In that moment, she saw a side of John she had never fully believed in before, a man who was present, loving, and unshakably devoted. The scare lasted for days, but Noah eventually began to recover. As they sat together in the hospital room, watching Noah sleep peacefully, Anna turned to John. "You didn't leave," she said quietly. "Not once." John looked at her, his expression soft but resolute. "I'll never leave again, Anna. You and Noah are my life now, building a new foundation." When Noah was finally well enough to go home, life began to settle into a new rhythm. John's presence became a constant, not just in Noah's life, but also in Anna's. He continued to support the school, working alongside Anna to secure additional funding and expand their programs. One evening, as they sat in the school's empty library after hours, John surprised Anna by pulling out a small box. He opened it to reveal a simple yet elegant ring. "Anna," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one anyway. I want to build a life with you, a real life, where we face everything together. Will you marry me again?" Anna's breath caught, tears welling in her eyes. She thought about everything they had been through, the pain, the growth, the hope, and for the first time, she felt ready to let go of the past. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling but certain. "Yes, John, I will." The path forward. Their wedding was a simple affair, held in the school's courtyard under the soft glow of string lights, surrounded by friends, family, and the children whose lives they had touched. Anna and John exchanged vows that were far more meaningful than the first time. "I promise to always choose you," John said, his voice thick with emotion. "To be the husband and father you deserve." "And I promise to trust you," Anna replied, her eyes shining. "To let go of the past and embrace the future we're building together." As they kissed, Noah cheered from his seat beside Mrs. Henderson, clutching his beloved stuffed elephant, a future filled with hope. In the years that followed, Anna and John worked side by side to grow the Lighthouse Learning Center into a thriving institution that served hundreds of children. Their home was filled with laughter, love, and the occasional chaos of parenting an energetic little boy. Anna often reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. It hadn't been easy, and it hadn't been perfect, but it had been worth it. Together, they had turned heartbreak into healing and built a life that was stronger for the trials they had endured. As she watched John and Noah playing in the yard one sunny afternoon, Anna felt a deep sense of peace. The wounds of the past had healed, and in their place was something far more enduring, a love forged in forgiveness, trust, and unyielding hope. The unseen enemy. The community was abuzz with efforts to save the Lighthouse Learning Center. But behind the scenes, Anna and John faced a growing sense of dread. Every step forward seemed to uncover new obstacles, and the closer they got to their fundraising goal, the more ruthless their opponent became. Richard Lorne, a man infamous for his vindictive business tactics, wasn't content to simply buy the property. He began leveraging his influence to undermine the school's campaign, using smear tactics to question the integrity of Anna's leadership and the viability of the school itself. Anonymous letters criticizing the school's management appeared in local newspapers, and permits for the upcoming fundraising gala were suddenly delayed by bureaucratic red tape. Anna sat at the kitchen table late one night, the weight of it all pressing down on her as she read yet another scathing article about the school. The children's laughter from the day felt like a distant memory, replaced by the cold, calculated efforts of a man determined to crush everything she had built. "I don't understand how someone can be this cruel," she said, her voice trembling. "It's not just a building to him, John. It's about destroying us." John leaned against the doorway, his arms crossed, his jaw set. "He's playing dirty because he knows how much this means to you, to us. He's trying to make us doubt ourselves." "Well, it's working," Anna said, tears brimming in her eyes. "Everywhere I turn, there's another roadblock, another attack." John moved to her side, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll get through this, Anna. I promise you." The community fights back, determined not to let Lauren's efforts derail their mission. Anna and John redoubled their focus on rallying support. They reached out to every contact they had, leaning on John's business connections and Anna's network of parents and educators. The school hosted an open house, showcasing the transformative work being done for the children, which drew widespread attention from local news outlets. One particularly moving moment came when a former student, now a successful architect, returned to speak at the open house. Standing before a crowd of parents, donors, and reporters, she shared her story of how the Lighthouse Learning Center had given her the foundation she needed to succeed. "This school didn't just teach me math and reading," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "It taught me that I mattered, that I could dream bigger than my circumstances. We can't let that be taken away from the next generation." Her speech went viral, sparking a surge of donations and a renewed sense of hope among the community. Anna and John worked late into the night, personally thanking donors and strategizing their next moves. For the first time in weeks, the possibility of saving the school seemed within reach. The setback. But just as things began to turn around, disaster struck. The day before the gala, a critical event that could push them over their fundraising goal, Anna received a call from the venue manager. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Calloway," the manager said, "but we've been forced to cancel your reservation. There's been an issue with the building's permits." Anna's heart sank. She knew this was no coincidence. Richard Lauren's reach extended far beyond business. He had clearly used his influence to sabotage their plans. "Thank you for letting me know," she said, her voice trembling. She hung up and immediately called John. "He's done it again," she said, frustration and despair mingling in her voice. "He shut down our venue." John was silent for a moment, then said, "We're not giving up, Anna. There's still time to find another place." "Where?" she asked, her voice rising. "Every other venue is either booked or too expensive. We can't afford this." "We'll figure it out," John said, his tone firm. "I'll make some calls. You focus on the rest of the preparations." A last-minute miracle. John's determination paid off. By late that evening, he had secured a last-minute venue, an old community theater on the edge of town. Though far from the grandeur of the original location, it was a space filled with character and history, a place that seemed to echo the resilience of the school itself. The parents, teachers, and students pitched in to transform the theater overnight. They hung banners, set up tables, and decorated the space with artwork created by the children. By the time the sun rose, the theater had been transformed into a vibrant celebration of the community spirit. The gala. The gala was a resounding success. Attendees filled the theater, moved by the stories of students, parents, and alumni who shared how the Lighthouse Learning Center had changed their lives. Noah, now old enough to understand the importance of the event, stood proudly beside Anna as she gave her speech. "This school isn't just about education," Anna said, her voice clear and strong. "It's about hope. It's about giving children the tools they need to believe in themselves and to create a better future." The room erupted in applause, and by the end of the night, the donations had surpassed their goal. The Lighthouse Learning Center was saved. A confrontation. The victory, however, didn't go unnoticed by Richard Lauren. A week after the gala, he showed up at the school unannounced, his expression cold and calculating. "You think you've won," he said to John, standing in the school's courtyard. "But this isn't over." John met his gaze evenly. "Yes, it is. You've underestimated what this community is capable of. Your money and influence can't take away what we've built here." Lorne sneered. "We'll see." But as he turned to leave, Anna stepped forward. "You can try to tear us down, Mr. Lorne," she said, her voice steady. "But we'll rise every time. This school isn't just bricks and mortar, it's people. And people like you will never understand that." Lorne left, his defeat evident. For the first time, Anna and John felt a sense of finality. The school was safe, and their family had weathered yet another storm. A new chapter. Months later, the Lighthouse Learning Center celebrated its 10th anniversary with a grand festival. The school had not only survived but thrived, expanding its programs and becoming a model for other communities. Anna and John stood together in the school's courtyard, watching as Noah and Grace played with their friends. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the joy of a community that had come together to protect something they believed in. "You did it," John said, slipping an arm around Anna's waist. "No," Anna replied, smiling up at him. "We did it." Their journey had been filled with trials, but it had forged something unbreakable. Together, they had built a legacy of love, resilience, and hope, a legacy that would endure for generations to come.